What if I told you that within your lifetime, humans might not just visit the moon, but actually live there? It sounds like science fiction, but space agencies and private companies are already racing to build permanent settlements on the lunar surface. And here's the shocking part. While the idea of a moon base seems like an incredible step for humanity, the reality is far more dangerous than most people realize. Deadly radiation bombards the surface. Temperatures swing from boiling hot to freezing cold in a matter of hours, and a fine layer of toxic lunar dust threatens to destroy our technology. Yet, despite these extreme challenges, scientists and engineers are pushing forward because unlocking the moon's secrets could be our first real step toward becoming an interplanetary species. But can we truly survive there? Or will the moon prove to be an uninhabitable nightmare? Stay with me, because what you're about to discover might just change how you see the future of humanity forever. For as long as humans have gazed at the night sky, the moon has been a source of wonder and mystery. Unlike the distant planets or far-off stars, it is close enough that we can see its surface with the naked eye. A celestial neighbor that has sparked myths, legends, and scientific curiosity for centuries. But beyond its beauty and symbolic significance, the moon holds real potential as a new frontier for humanity. Its proximity to Earth makes it a logical first step for expanding human presence beyond our home planet, and the resources hidden beneath its dusty surface could make long-term space exploration more sustainable. One of the biggest advantages of the moon is that it is relatively close. On average, it is about 384,000 kilometers away, far but not impossibly distant. Unlike Mars, which takes months to reach, astronauts could travel to the moon in just a few days. This makes it the perfect location to test the limits of human survival in space without being too far from home. If something goes wrong, help is only a short trip away. This is crucial for developing the technology and strategies needed for long-term space missions. Before we can send humans to Mars or beyond, we need to understand how to live and work on another world. The moon is the perfect training ground. But beyond its role as a testing site, the moon may also hold valuable resources that could support future missions. Scientists believe that the lunar soil, known as regolith, contains useful materials, like oxygen, metals, and even water ice trapped in permanently shadowed craters at the poles. Water is especially important, as it can be used for drinking, farming, and even converted into rocket fuel. Instead of launching everything from Earth, future explorers could use the moon's resources to build shelters, grow food, and refuel spacecraft. This could dramatically reduce the cost of space travel and open up new possibilities for human expansion beyond Earth. A lunar base could be more than just a scientific outpost. It could be a stepping stone for the entire future of space exploration. Imagine a network of habitats, research labs, and even launch stations on the moon, serving as a gateway to the rest of the solar system. With lower gravity than Earth, launching spacecraft from the moon requires far less energy, making it an ideal location for deep space missions. If we can establish a permanent human presence on the moon, it could be the first step toward a future where humanity is no longer confined to one planet. The dream of living on the moon is not just science fiction. Space agencies like NASA, the European Space Agency, and private companies like SpaceX and Blue Origin are already working on plans to build lunar bases within the coming decades. The question is no longer if we can go back to the moon, but when and whether we will stay. But while the potential is undeniable, the challenges are just as real. How will humans survive in such a harsh environment? What obstacles stand in the way of making the moon our future home? In the next section, we will explore the biggest challenges that must be overcome before we can truly call the moon our second home. Living on the moon may sound like an exciting adventure, but in reality, it would be one of the most extreme survival challenges humanity has ever faced. Unlike Earth, the moon has no protective atmosphere, no breathable air, and no natural shield from the dangers of space. Every moment spent outside a pressurized habitat would require a spacesuit, and even inside, astronauts would have to carefully manage resources just to stay alive. Before we can seriously consider making the moon our second home, we must overcome some enormous obstacles, starting with the harsh, unforgiving environment. One of the biggest dangers of lunar life is the moon's lack of atmosphere. On Earth, our atmosphere acts like a protective bubble, keeping temperatures stable and shielding us from harmful radiation. The moon has no such protection. During the lunar day, temperatures soar to around 127 degrees, 260 degrees, hot enough to boil water. But at night, the temperature plummets to a freezing 173 203 colder than Antarctica. Any lunar habitat would need an advanced heating and cooling system to keep humans from either burning up or freezing solid. And even inside a shelter, there is another invisible threat: radiation. Without an atmosphere or a strong magnetic field like Earth's, the moon is constantly bombarded by cosmic rays and solar radiation, increasing the risk of cancer and other health problems. Future lunar settlers may need to build their homes underground or cover them with thick layers of lunar soil to block out radiation. Then there is the problem of food and water. On Earth, fresh water is everywhere, and crops can grow in rich soil under natural sunlight. The moon offers none of these advantages. The lunar surface is dry and barren, with no rain, rivers, or fertile ground. While scientists have discovered frozen water in deep craters near the moon's poles, extracting and purifying it will be a complex challenge. Every drop of water will be precious, and astronauts will have to recycle their waste, yes, even their urine, to survive. Growing food is just as difficult. Plants need soil, water, and a controlled climate to grow, and none of that exists naturally on the moon. Scientists are experimenting with hydroponic and aeroponic systems, where plants grow without soil, but this technology is still in its early stages. Until food production becomes reliable, lunar settlers will have to depend on supply missions from Earth, making survival even more uncertain. Even if we solve the physical challenges, there is still the human factor to consider. Life on the moon would be incredibly isolating. Imagine being in a small, sealed habitat with only a handful of other people, unable to go outside without a bulky spacesuit, and knowing that Earth, the only place where humans have ever lived, is hundreds of thousands of kilometers away. There would be no fresh air, no open landscapes, and no way to leave if things became overwhelming. Studies on astronauts in space stations have already shown that long-term isolation can lead to stress, depression, and conflicts between crew members. Future lunar settlers would need careful psychological support, entertainment, and ways to stay mentally healthy in such a confined and unnatural environment. Surviving on the moon will not be easy, but if we can overcome these challenges, it could mark the beginning of a new era for humanity. If we can live on the moon, then Mars, and maybe even further worlds, may not be so out of reach. But how close are we to actually making this a reality? In the next section, we will explore the current plans and technologies being developed that could make a permanent lunar settlement possible. Surviving on the moon may seem impossible with all the dangers it presents, but scientists and engineers are already working on solutions that could turn this harsh, airless world into a livable outpost. If we want to establish a permanent human presence on the moon, we will need to build reliable life support systems, find ways to use the moon's own resources, and protect future settlers from deadly radiation. The good news? The technology to make this happen is already being developed. One of the biggest priorities for a lunar base is creating a stable, self-sustaining habitat. Since the moon has no breathable atmosphere, future settlers will need pressurized shelters that provide oxygen, temperature control, and protection from micrometeorites. NASA and other space agencies are developing advanced life support systems that recycle air, water, and waste, similar to those used on the International Space Station, but on a much larger scale. Some proposals suggest using inflatable habitats that can be expanded once they arrive, while others envision 3D printed structures made from lunar soil. These structures would not only provide shelter, but also reduce the need to transport heavy building materials from Earth, making lunar construction much more practical. To make life on the moon sustainable, future settlers will need to rely on its natural resources rather than depending on constant supply missions from Earth. The lunar soil, or regolith, contains important materials like oxygen, silicon, and metals that could be used for construction, tools, and even fuel. Scientists are exploring ways to extract oxygen from the regolith, providing breathable air and water for astronauts. Meanwhile, frozen water deposits in permanently shadowed craters could be mined, purified, and used for drinking, growing food, or even split into hydrogen and oxygen to create rocket fuel. If successful, this would make the moon a refueling station for deeper space missions, significantly lowering the cost of space exploration. Another major challenge is radiation. Without Earth's magnetic field and atmosphere, the moon is constantly exposed to harmful cosmic rays and solar radiation. Long-term exposure can increase the risk of cancer, damage DNA, and weaken the human immune system. One of the most promising solutions is to build lunar habitats underground or cover them with thick layers of lunar soil, which can block much of the radiation. Some scientists suggest using lava tubes, large underground tunnels formed by ancient volcanic activity, as natural shelters for a moon base. These tunnels could provide protection not only from radiation, but also from extreme temperatures and micrometeorite impacts. Another strategy involves using advanced materials to create lightweight radiation shielding. Engineers are experimenting with special polymers, water-based shielding, and even artificial magnetic fields that could help deflect radiation away from living spaces. If these technologies are successful, they could make it much safer for humans to live and work on the moon for extended periods. While we are still in the early stages of lunar colonization, the progress being made is remarkable. Space agencies and private companies are already developing and testing technologies that could make moon bases a reality within the next few decades. If we can solve the key challenges of life support, resource utilization, and radiation protection, the moon may not just be a place for short visits, it could become humanity's first true home beyond Earth. But as we look to the future, there is an even bigger question to consider. What impact would a lunar settlement have on human civilization? In the next section, we will explore how living on the moon could change everything, from space exploration to life on Earth itself. The idea of living on the moon is no longer just a concept in science fiction. Right now, space agencies and private companies are making real progress in turning this vision into reality. NASA's Artemis program aims to land humans on the moon within the next few years, with plans for a permanent lunar base soon after. Meanwhile, China, Russia, and private companies like SpaceX and Blue Origin are developing their own lunar missions, each with their own vision for how humans could survive and thrive on the moon. These missions are not just about exploration, they are laying the groundwork for what could be humanity's next great leap. One of the most exciting aspects of modern lunar missions is their focus on sustainability. Unlike the Apollo missions, which were short visits, today's projects are designed with long-term survival in mind. Robots and landers are already scouting the lunar surface for resources, testing the extraction of water ice, and studying how the harsh environment affects technology and materials. These missions are helping scientists understand how to build reliable habitats, how to use lunar soil for construction, and how to generate energy using solar panels or even nuclear reactors. Every new discovery brings us one step closer to a permanent human presence on the moon. But beyond the scientific and engineering challenges, lunar colonization could have huge implications for Earth itself. The moon is rich in resources that could change the way we think about energy and industry. Helium-3, a rare isotope found in the lunar soil, has the potential to be used in nuclear fusion, a technology that could one day provide nearly limitless clean energy. If fusion power becomes viable, the moon could become an energy source that reduces our dependence on fossil fuels. Additionally, mining operations on the moon could provide materials that are scarce on Earth, reducing the need for destructive mining practices here at home. At the same time, establishing a human presence on the moon will bring new geopolitical challenges. Space is no longer just about exploration, it is also about influence and power. Countries and corporations are already racing to claim territory and resources on the moon, raising important legal and ethical questions. Who owns the moon? How do we prevent conflicts over resources? Will lunar colonies be independent, or will they remain under the control of Earth's governments? The answers to these questions could shape the future of space exploration for generations to come. Despite these challenges, the benefits of a lunar colony could be enormous. A permanent base on the moon would allow scientists to conduct experiments that are impossible on Earth, from studying the effects of low gravity on the human body to testing new space farming techniques. The moon could also serve as a launch pad for deep space missions, allowing us to explore Mars and beyond with far greater efficiency. And economically, a thriving lunar industry could create entirely new markets, from space tourism to off-world manufacturing, opening up possibilities we can barely imagine today. For the first time in history, the dream of living on the moon is within reach. With advancements in technology, growing interest from both governments and private companies, and the undeniable benefits of lunar colonization, humanity stands on the edge of a new era. But the journey will not be easy. As we prepare to take our first real steps toward a lunar settlement, we must ask ourselves, are we truly ready for this next great adventure? In the final section, we will reflect on what it will mean for humanity to become a multiplanetary species, and how life on the moon could change the course of our future forever. The idea of humans living on the moon is no longer a distant fantasy. It is a future that could unfold within our lifetimes. With current advancements in technology and growing interest from both governments and private companies, we could see the first permanent lunar settlement within the next few decades. NASA's Artemis missions are already laying the foundation, and ambitious plans from China, Russia, and private space firms are accelerating progress even further. If everything goes as planned, we may witness the construction of the first lunar habitats by the 2030s, with a self-sustaining colony emerging by the mid-century. But what would life on the moon actually look like? Imagine futuristic domes and underground shelters protecting settlers from radiation and extreme temperatures. Astronauts and engineers working together to extract oxygen and water from lunar soil, while hydroponic farms grow fresh food in controlled environments. Solar fields and nuclear reactors powering research labs, factories, and even spaceports for missions beyond the moon. Over time, what begins as a small research station could evolve into a thriving community, complete with scientists, technicians, and eventually, even civilians. The moon could become a gateway to the solar system, a launch pad for human expansion to Mars and beyond. Of course, there are still many questions left unanswered. Will lunar colonies be controlled by nations, corporations, or independent settlers? Will life on the moon be a privilege reserved for the wealthy? Or will it eventually become an option for everyday people? Could lunar industries help solve Earth's problems? Or will they create new challenges we have yet to consider? The answers to these questions will define the future of space colonization, and they will be shaped by the choices we make today. So, Titonen, now it is your turn to think about the future. Would you ever consider living on the moon if given the chance? What do you think are the biggest opportunities and risks of lunar colonization? Let us know in the comments below. And if you found this journey into the future of space exploration fascinating, do not forget to like this video, share it with fellow space enthusiasts, and subscribe for more deep dives into the biggest questions about our universe. The moon is only the beginning. Humanity's greatest adventure is just getting started.